of the presentation. We'll send you a link to the YouTube video, and we have some fun little documents, brochures and coverage explanation, claims analyzers and stuff like that we can send to you also. So let's dig in. So Stuckey & Company officially provides independent agents and brokers with innovative insurance programs and responsive service that we feel you need for long-term growth and success. We're an insurance MGA. We've been in business for 25 years. We have 9 niche programs. We offer what's called a 151 promise. And what that is if we get an account in by 1 o'clock in the afternoon, we get it out to you by 5. If we get it in by 5, we get it out to you by 1. So we also would like to offer an incentive for you to submit business and just to try our 151 promise that we launched last year. And we will give any agents with submissions a $25 gift certificate for any submission that you send in with the next 30 days. So it'll allow you to try our product and our service and kind of show you where the rubber meets the road. As MGAs, we do all the stuff you'd expect an MGA to do, everything from creating the program and the underwriting guidelines to actually underwriting to those guidelines, rating, quoting, binding, policy issuance. We do all the endorsements here. We send out the renewals, calculate renewal premiums, invoices, report, integrate with other systems. So if you have a system or a website that you'd like to use to quote, we can take in XML and return to you a real-time rate that you can display on your website or in your agency management system. Sometimes we do claims. We always do marketing, and we offer training on all of our products too. So Stuckey & Company has over 20 years underwriting experience in the technology field. We started way back when, when like year 2000, before year 2000, things were an issue. So it's nice to have our, the experience behind it. The relationship that we have with our carriers also go back that far. The underwriting guidelines, of course, and all of that stuff that goes with it. These are our specialty insurance programs. SafetyTek is an insurance program for the technology industry. Obviously, that's why you're here. Aspire A&E is a kind of an offshoot of the technology program. It was sort of a natural progression. We got a lot of submissions for engineers, such as computer engineers and software engineers. And it kind of bordered the technology practice, but it really wasn't there. It was a little bit more technical. So we launched the Aspire A&E program. Harbor Guard is an insurance program for marinas and boat dealerships, and it's really actually where Stuckey & Company, how we formed. We had one program. It was with Lloyd's at the time. Totally surplus lines through a syndicate over there, and we then expanded it to include an admitted policy, property and GL, rental boat liability, marine operators, legal liability, and stuff like that for the marine industry. We have like 350 different miscellaneous professional liability classes. We have a green energy insurance program. We do personal lines, which is home, auto, boat, and high value home. Commercial lines, so standard BOP, business owners policies that include property and GL and umbrella and whatnot, but also comp and auto and bonds. And then If it falls outside of the personal or commercial lines, we have just launched a new relationship that we have with Maxim, which is a company owned by the Hartford, and they are a surplus lines company, which means they do some expanded underwriting guideline business, business owners policy, inland marine, some professional EPLI coverage and stuff. So that'll bring in some tougher to place contractors, companies that are new in business, some tougher property risk, people that have had losses and things like that. So without further ado, we will turn it over to Harry Smith and Maggie Hammett to present the SafetyTek Expansion.
Thanks, Dwight. I'm just going to jump right in. This is our third in what will be a series of webinars that are covering the Tech E&O experience. So far, we've talked a lot in the previous two about technology services, what they are, who performs them, and you'll see on the list here some of the folks that I'm sure you guys are familiar with. IT project management and consulting, which we see a ton of, and then moving on down the list to technology products. When we covered these initially, I think the page of technology products was almost a whole page, but we've boiled it down here to just a few of them. But as you can imagine, there are plenty more, and they're growing all the time. Computer hardware, software, network servers are kind of where this thing started. We're on up to guys that develop and operate drones and a lot of other technology product exposures at this point. So I'm going to kick it over to Maggie and let her get started with it.
Great. Thank you, Harry. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Like Harry mentioned, we're doing a series of webinars to kind of bring you guys up to speed with some technology exposures and help you sell the technology E&O to your clients. Today, it's kind of a short and sweet webinar. This is our SafetyTek Expansion, which is connected to our main technology E&O form. And also, I want to make a note, if anybody is interested in any of our previous series, just kind of let us know. We'd be happy to get you a copy, send you a link, or provide you with the recording and the slides so that you can follow along and maybe catch up with everybody else if you're just joining us today. Today's focus is going to be on the SafetyTek Expansion, and this is actually one of my favorite coverages. It helps us stand apart from some of the other forms and the other carriers. It gives us 7 additional coverages that we get to put on our form, and we've kind of put it into one endorsement that we add to the technology E&O form, and it's at a very minimal fee. So let's go ahead and start breaking down some of these coverages. I listed them here just to kind of go over what we'll discuss later in the slides. Defense costs outside the limits of liability, first dollar defense, contractual liability, innocent insured, management consulting, telecommunication services, and information technology staffing and placement. These are just some great enhancements that we want to make sure you guys are offering expanded coverage to your insureds. So the first one I want to talk about is the defense costs outside the limits of liability. Some of you may be familiar or not. I just provided some brief definitions. Defense costs with respect to a claim or a suit shall not be paid or deducted from the applicable limits of liability. Therefore, if your defense costs are, $500,000, it will not deplete $1 million limit on your policy. So this is kind of a great seller. Some of our other competitors do not offer the defense outside the limits. So this, in my opinion, is probably one of the best highlights of our expansion form. The next thing we have listed is the first dollar defense, which means the deductible shall not apply to the defense cost. Something else you want to keep in mind when you're reviewing some forms is deductible versus retention. There is a slight difference. If you have a deductible on your policy. It just means that the carrier will begin defending immediately, that they're not going to wait for a payment, or the retention is kind of how I differentiate those two. If you have a retention on your policy, you have to pay the retention in order for your carrier to just start defending your claim. Then we've kind of carved back or amended the exclusion for contractual liability. So this is breach of express or implied, or an actual contract, warranty, or guarantee, or a promise the insured has assumed, unless the liability would have been attached to the insured, even in the absence. So this exclusion is not going to apply to part of the claim alleging any unintentional failure to perform a technology service or product, which we kind of referred to in the earlier slide, what our technology product services are, if you need to reflect on some of that.
Okay, I'm going to jump in here. I'm going to pick up where Maggie left off, but just really quickly, Maggie talked about how much she appreciates the SafetyTek Expansion. I kind of draw parallels from my personal life, and to me, SafetyTek Expansion is for tech insurance is what accident forgiveness has done for families with teenage drivers. So if you can kind of put your mind around that, it kind of helps you have that peace of mind of having the broadened coverages that SafetyTek provides. I'll start with innocent insured. What this does is it covers named insured for rogue or partner or employee, as long as a named insured did not participate in or had knowledge of such fraud, dishonesty, or criminal or malicious act. So what that is, if you've got an employee that gets into the system and does damage, but was not directed by the company or organization, you have coverage against that. The next two, the unauthorized, is what I like to refer to them as one of them is simply for access, which is pretty self-explanatory here. This is a situation where someone gains access to your computer system, either an authorized individual or an unauthorized individual, but they're accessing it for an unauthorized purpose. And then unauthorized use is pretty self-explanatory. You've got a computer system accessed by an unauthorized person or persons, and again, they're doing things in an unauthorized manner. So they're doing things in the system, actually taking action that could be detrimental to your operations. When you look at these and the impact of these particular coverages, I try to imagine what our coverages would be like for our insureds if these were not present. And which brings me to my final point when I'm talking about these. We need to make sure that we're looking for these as we're talking to individual carriers. What are we doing around these points? These could be gray areas if they're not addressed by broadening coverage.
Thanks, Harry. I just want to kind of point out a few more added value to this expansion that we offer. These are kind of some general terminologies I'm sure thrown around when you discuss what the services are that the insured is offering. So we want to be sure and even cover the consulting side of the insured's businesses, because it's not always consulting solely on a technology service or product. It can actually include management consulting. And for that, we wanted to make sure that we cover, the analysis, management, and operating problems associated with any goal or objective or strategy that the company may have. And this can include areas of business recommendations, implementation of practical solutions to these problems. So sometimes your insured may go in and just also consult on a workflow issue, trying to make things flow a little bit smoother and faster. So it's not necessarily going to be on technology, it's more of a business consulting. So we can pick up a small percent of that as well on the technology form. We want to make sure that we're getting, everything covered, because we realize some of the things the insured does is not going to be, you know, solely directed around technology. Another one that we include is a definition on the SafetyTek Expansion is telecommunication services. Again, it's a pretty lengthy definition, but this includes wireless communication services, telecommunication consulting, local access to telephone services, cable and internet telephone services, and of course broadband services and a private line or a network service. And then the last thing I've listed is we refer to it as IT staffing and placement. So your insured may be identifying and appraising and actually placing personnel into an employment role and consulting regarding those types of activities. We want to make sure, again, that we are covering all aspects of the insured services, whether it be consulting or a product. And then lastly, we just kind of wanted to go over and provide you guys just a couple of claims examples to give you an idea of how this particular expansion form would respond. So we've kind of wrapped up what those 7 SafetyTek expansion coverages are. We, again, provided examples that are going to apply, kind of show you what we're talking about. This particular example is innocent insured or a rogue employee, which Harry had covered in a previous slide. But this is how our form would respond if a named insured employee was working with the city government, allegedly locked access to the city's network by resetting some passwords to the switches and routers. The employee refused to disclose passwords. Therefore, the administrative had lost control and was not able to access the networks. So all the passwords were switched without the knowledge of the principal and partner or the director of named insured. And then the employee was found guilty of network tampering, which resulted in $200,000 worth of damage. The key here is obviously that the owner or director had no knowledge to the employee's act. Therefore, our form did respond, and that was not something that the insured had to come out of pocket with or just faced with a claim and not have the carrier backing up any part of the defense or the claim. So again, this is something important. You should probably be making sure, you know, other forms or competitors are offering these type of coverages. And then here's one more.
Okay, just in keeping with giving you examples that relate to the coverages that we discussed earlier, I'm going to pick up on one that handles defense costs outside the limits of liability, and I'll try to touch on a couple of the others as I go through it. In this situation, we have a website developer who produces code for an online retailer. The online retailer's customers complain about difficulty accessing the payment function of the website. Retailer files suit against the website developer, and the retailer is seeking $2 million in damages for lost sales and repairs to the website. Now, the website developer secures legal representation, and let's just say for this situation, he's informed that this defense is going to cost him $250,000. Now, if you have defense outside the limits of liability, at this point you're not that concerned about your liability limits. You know that they have been preserved. But if you don't have it, in this example, and let's say you have $1 million and $1 million liability limit, this would put you down $250,000, leaving you with just $750,000 to defend yourself. To pay any award that may be given through the court. So if that judgment comes in at $1 million, you've only got $750,000 left. So this broadened coverage, I really believe, delivers peace of mind to our insureds, and it's the type of thing that once they have full knowledge of, they just don't like to operate without.
Fantastic. Thank you, Harry. So that concludes the SafetyTek Expansion webinar. I think we covered everything in great detail, but we want to, of course, open it up to questions. If anyone has questions, You can use your control panel to type those in. As of right now, we don't have any, so that means that Harry and I did a great job. That's fantastic. Anybody out there with questions, if you are not comfortable asking them during the webinar, we are also providing our contact information. Please feel free to give Harry or I a call or shoot us an email. If you have a submission you'd like us to look at and discuss and maybe talk about some of these expansion coverages where it would apply or help your insured feel more comfortable with the policy form, we most certainly can do that as well. Again, probably in closing in the next couple hours by the end of the day today, you'll receive a follow-up email which will include this webinar, the slides, the presentation, and we'll go ahead and provide you with a sample of the SafetyTek Expansion and our policy form so you can see how they actually combine each other and how important SafetyTek Expansion is. Well, still no questions, so I just want to thank everyone for joining us. It was great discussing coverage with you today. Hopefully we can see some submissions and also take Dwight up on his incentive program. Any submissions that we look at in the next 30 days, look out for your gift card. We appreciate you attending, and you guys have a great day.
Thanks for joining us.